Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and I have to apologize for the first that I will be speaking English as our colleague from Los Angeles. I could speak in a couple of other languages, but I don't think Finnish and Swedish would make a lot of. So Alexis already mentioned the work, and I'll be really talking about the data and the logistics data specifically, and the work we did on the Logistics Observatory for Chile. This is a report that has come out already. I think we're going to be translating that in Spanish as well, hopefully, and make it available. It's right now available in English. Just a couple of words on International Transport Forum at the OECD. We are an intergovernmental organization, part of the OECD family. We work for the ministers of transport for our nearly 60 countries. What we do, we carry out policy research, provide best practice advice to the governments around the world on all issues of transport. And we also have organized a ministerial meeting every year, which brings together about 1,000 participants in Leipzig, Germany. This year it's taking place on the 18th and the 20th of May. So you're all welcome to join that. It's a very, very good event with the ministers, stakeholders, research, academia, CEOs of companies, etc., coming together in an open discussion on key transport issues. And I mentioned already, so I'm going to be very focused on the Logistics Observatory work we did collectively with the Ministry of Transport. And this really was a review from our side to look at Chile's transport and logistics data. And the results are summarized now in this report, and we'll have hopefully a very, very good follow-up on this work. It's been very positive so far. So there's a slogan at the OECD, better data for better policies. And I think in this case, it couldn't be more true. Better data can actually lead for better policies at the national and regional level. Just a very quick word on the way we did this work. So we had an international review team together with our secretariat staff, which consisted of development banks, logistics experts around the world, participants from the private sector working on logistics, and international organizations at UN, ECLAC as well. And we also carried out a very, very successful 1.5-day workshop here in Chile a year ago, which was participated by several of the national logistics experts and people who are really involved on this topic and know the data, know the issues in very detail. Now, why we talk about logistics, I think it's quite obvious. Some of you might have seen these numbers, but some of the studies suggest that if you improve the infrastructure and border crossings alone to halfway of the world's best performance, this would actually lead to an increase of global GDP by 5%. I think 5%, is it a lot? Is it little? If you compare it to the complete worldwide tariff elimination, the impact of that is 6 times bigger. I think it tells about the importance of logistics performance for the economy, for the global economy as a whole. What about Chile? Alexis already showed this figure, and so the fact here, what I'd like to point out is that today Chile's logistic costs are 2 times higher than the rest of the OECD averages. This has a huge impact on Chile's competitiveness and ability to actually integrate into the global supply chains. Lower logistics and transport costs would improve domestic firms, not only the big companies, but also the small and medium firms' competitiveness, and help boost exports more broadly. I'd like to make the point, and I think Alexis, if I think the Spanish correctly, you made the same point about this. Going back to data, we have here data from 2004. It's over 10 years old data about logistics costs in Chile. And if you're trying to make decisions and policies based on that type of data, it is extremely difficult to have the right targeted actions put in place. Here we're using the Logistics Performance Index. So how does Chile actually perform today? LPI being one of the many measures. Wouldn't say at all it's the only and exclusive. Here we compare to the peers, the rest of the world. Chile performs relatively well in the upper quintile of the 75% around for all the different elements. But if we compare to the more advanced economies, here EU and especially the OECD, there is a significant gap that Chile can and potentially should and can reach as well. And I think this is an opportunity. It's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. But how to get there? How do we improve logistics performance? We need several policy actions on customs, infrastructure, shipments. I'm using the LPI categories here as an illustration, not necessarily being the ones that we need to address specifically, but there's several policy actions at several different policies and areas, and not only at nodes, but also throughout the supply chains. But in order to put in place these policy actions, they need to be linked and supported by indicators, data, analysis, forecasts, and to really have that interaction, understanding how these policy actions affect the outcomes. And again, being able to readjust those policy actions to even do better. But this is the first point, what our review team, and when we look at the data in Chile and went about looking at it, we really identified a significant data gap here in Chile. And this really has a huge impact on the ability of the country to improve logistics performance at the moment. You already showed this data, Alexis. We've been using some same sources for that. That's excellent. But I think it's worth reinforcing. And just to complement that, here we use actually the ITF statistics, the OECD statistics for the ton kilometers, a bit broader around the world. But I think the main message is here. The official sources for Chile show that the ton kilometers are bigger than China, USA, Russia altogether. And I think there's something here that needs to be gone into more detail. The same slide on the number of freight transport companies. Depending on the results, depending on the sources, you have huge differences in the number of companies. And also, another slide, this is an activity in one of the Chilean ports in 2014, based on different authorities' reports on that volumes. I think, looking at these differences, it is extremely difficult to make actionable policies that really affect, and targeted policies that affect the right questions we want to ask on logistics performance. Now, what kind of data we do need? I would stress that the simple indicators are not sufficient. Simple indicators come to the KPI side. That's the core where we start talking about the strategic value. But from the perspective of building a good data set to be able to answer the questions, you need to have several different layers of data. You need to start with who is doing the sectoral data, the operational data, how much is being done in terms of goods movement, etc., how profitable that movement is, financial data, and how long does it take, the origin destinations, from where to where goods are being moved, the duration data, and then how well we are doing. That's the top tip of the iceberg, the KPIs that then tell us how well we are actually doing in logistics performance. As a review team, we really strongly recommend that the Chilean government would create a logistics observatory. We think that this would be a key element to bridge the data gap that the country has today. It has to have a clear mandate, that's is needed. It has to have a clear policy connection. So the data that you are collecting should be linked to actionable policies, what we are doing, and we can see the effects of those policies as well. It requires a strong commitment both from the public and private sector, and having the ownership of the exercise felt on the both sides. One party working alone is not sufficient. There has to be a regular feedback on the indicators and their usefulness, reviewing them. Are we doing the right things? Are we collecting the right data? And you do need a sustainability for the observatory as well. And this requires a very well-defined business plan. And what we recommend as the key objectives or key tasks for such of an observatory would be obviously to collect and disseminate high-quality data on Chilean logistics, produce analytical work based on that data on key issues on logistics in Chile. But I'd like to stress that a logistics observatory should not be a statistical exercise alone. Some of the world's best logistics performance, and I give an example, the Netherlands, which is the #1 in the LPI today and is very high quality. the most successful experiences, such in the Netherlands, have been built on dialogue between the public and private sector. The dialogue, the Dutch Logistics Observatory, it is a partnership between public and private sector and has been fundamental in promoting logistics more broadly in the country, and is one of the key factors why Netherlands is being where it is today. So some of the other tasks and objectives should be for the observatory really to build the dialogue between the public and private sector on how do we get there, how do we improve logistics performance, and raise awareness more broadly in the economy and in the country on the logistics sector as a whole. We also proposed a governance structure for the observatory. Don't want to go into details of this. This is just one of the proposals in the report. But I think the main point I want to make here is that we reflect the public-private partnership in the structure that we see for the governance within all the stakeholders being involved in the governance of this observatory. This is the ultimate outcome, but obviously this is a step-by-step approach where this could be then the final outcome for the observatory. So just to summarize the recommendations and my presentation, we, the ITF OECD review team, we very strongly recommend the Chilean government to establish a logistics observatory urgently. That's an immediate action to bridge the data gap and to support the development of the logistics strategies more generally. This will help to strengthen the decision-making, create trust in data and analysis that can help to promote the dialogue between different stakeholders, public, private sector, and more generally helps the sector to develop a strong logistics strategy. We recommend that the Ministry of Transport and Telecommunication takes the leadership in the implementation, which would be a step-by-step implementation, but obviously we need a strong governance and leadership for the project and good technical capacities, which are both critical for the success. We also recommend that this would be built on top of the existing data collection and structure in-house at the Ministry of Transport and Telecommunications today. And again, but from there, starting a step-by-step approach to reach the ultimate goal of Logistics Observatory. This also requires, as I said before, a strong commitment, both from the public and private sector, and it is obvious that you have to have a clear mandate for the observatory. But again, this helps to build common goals and deliver expected benefits. And here, obviously, financial support is also vital. But with that recommendation, we think and we feel that this could become a center of excellence with robust statistical methods, high-level quality analysis and research on logistics in Chile, and more generally be the hub for logistics dialogue in the country. Thank you very much.